Okay, we're good to go. What's up, guys? Chad Howse here, and I'm live with Christopher Walker. He is the founder of Truth Nutra, which is an awesome supplement company focused primarily on guys to help guys live healthier lives and improve their testosterone levels. Thanks for coming on, man.
What's up, Chad? Good to be here.
Tell us a bit about your history. I know you went to Duke. Is that correct?
Yep, went to Duke for neuroscience, and then after that, that kind of ties in, I guess, with the story. It all leads up to what I'm up to right now with Truth Nutra, and but yeah.
Tell us a bit about the story. Like, what I know you were, I think you found out that you had low testosterone.
Yeah, due to a pituitary tumor, and yeah, it was there were other low hormone levels, like the tumor. So when I was 19, I was diagnosed with the tumor. They found it and at that point, I'd kind of had issues like for a couple of years.
Yeah,
they did good, but it took them 2 years to find it because it took them 2 years to do a blood test, which kind of got me. They prescribed pharmaceuticals in the meantime. They put me in therapy sessions and programs and stuff. And then I finally was, after 2 years of that, I was like, hey, I need to go see a doctor because I haven't had any libido. I'm 19 years old, and I haven't had libido in a couple of years. And that was kind of weird. So finally they got a blood test just based on that. Like they didn't do any blood tests otherwise. And look at the blood test, and the doctor he's just a family doctor, at that point. And he was like, oh, I got to send you a specialist. So I go to a hematologist, oncologist in Northern Virginia. He does like a full run up, all the hormones, all the nutrient like micronutrient numbers, everything. He looked at it for less than 30 seconds, and he was like, I think you have a tumor, and let's get an MRI, found it. Sure enough, sitting there in the pituitary gland, basically blocking production of key hormones and like signaling. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes a ton of sense now why I had an issue. That's a big ass cup you got there.
Yeah, you're a beer mug.
Yeah.
It's a liter, right? So how do you find a good glass thing for water? You got to go get a beer mug.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I got one of these the Yetis.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Pretty awesome.
It's hard for me to keep track of water. That I'm like, I don't drink enough water if I'm not. All right, that's 1 liter. It's 2 liters.
Yeah. But anyway, so they found it. I had these hormonal issues. I didn't want, at that point, I was like so disenamored with the traditional medical system, like how they basically just failed to even, like the fact that they failed to do a blood test for 2 years of me having real medical problems. And I was like, I'm done with this. I don't want to take any of these antidepressants anymore. I don't want to do any of this stuff. They wanted me to go on hormone therapy. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is not a cure. I'm 19 years old. Why would I want to be on hormone therapy for the rest of my life? Like that makes zero sense.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, and I didn't want to do surgery. I had a friend in college at that point who she had the same tumor, in the pituitary gland. And they went in through her nose, did the surgery because it's like right at the center of your brain, like right in the bottom center. Yeah. And like her personality changed after. I was like, hell no, I don't want to do this. She got like there was a lot of like anxious behavior started up and just very, different, like way less relaxed.
So is it still there?
I don't think it is. And that's something I haven't gotten an MRI actually in a few years because I just had literally like all the symptoms have been gone. But we monitor it for a while. That was part of the deal, was like, you don't have to get surgery unless it grows. So we monitored it for a few years. It didn't grow at all, didn't change at all, but all symptoms went away. And just through starting like doing natural things that I started doing. And so at this point, I would bet money that it wasn't there anymore. And I actually just need to go get an MRI. Just confirm it, because just to confirm it that it's not there, and then show people that it's pretty dope. So
yeah.
But even if it is there, there are literally no troubles due to it. So there were other hormonal issues, but it really just came down to, I was like, what's the key thing? I thought that was testosterone. That was the thing I cared about as a guy. So I started doing and just like looking into everything. And, at that point I was on a medical leave from college. So I went back, changed everything to neuroscience for my major, and then started like just getting obsessed with how to correct this issue properly, naturally. And like shifted everything. I started doing a lot of water fasting. I started, I changed up my nutrition. I changed up how I was exercising. I started doing a lot of like stress management techniques, and it really just brought it to the basics of like, how are you hormonally healthy? Mm-hmm. And then my testosterone went from 11 nanograms per deciliter to 1192 in that short period of time.
The shit.
Yeah, like it was like an 18-month period.
That's crazy.
And, yeah, with just doing like nutrition stuff and training correctly, and that was when I like honestly had no intention of doing any teaching in terms of that stuff, and but my buddies just kept asking me, "How'd you do? That's awesome! Like what how'd you do it? How'd you do it?" And I on my bucket list was to write a book. I was like, I'll just write a book on it, and so I wrote the first version of the book, but now it's called Master Your T. At that point, it was called Testosterone IO.
Well, I think I have. Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, it's right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just tell guys how to get that after.
Yeah. So we at that point it was the first version. I wrote it in a matter of like 3 weeks. I think it was like 200 something pages, and then now that one, Ali Coppola and I did this final update together on it, and I think it's like 500 something pages.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, so it's pretty comprehensive at this point. We really wanted to turn it into like the encyclopedia, so you could really just quick reference anything and find details on how to increase your testosterone naturally from any angle. And that also at this version, the Master Your T version, we outlined the masculine optimization pyramid at the beginning. So it's like we were looking at actually what is the system involved here, and what's an easy way to look at this. And the pyramid kind of was formed out of that. So things at the bottom of the pyramid being the most essential, things at the top being the least essential, but still fun or important. Like you can still eke out that last 10% of performance out of it, kind of thing. And yeah, there's the pyramid right there. So micronutrients at the bottom.
Something along those lines as well.
Oh, sorry. Go say again.
We'll go through it. I wanted to ask you like something along those lines, like what's the most important, and then
got it.
Yeah, supplements is okay. Awesome.
Yeah, we put supplements at the top as the least important, but still a piece of the puzzle. Like if you want to use herbs or certain, obviously you can correct micronutrient deficiencies using supplements, and so. Yeah, and that's kind of like how the thing evolved. Like first wrote the book, turned into, started building an audience off that. Then eventually having this system, and eventually after finishing this other update, I was like, I want to go bigger with this. I've got a system that I think can help people heal really, a lot of other issues other than just testosterone, low testosterone. So I want to go, and that's where Truth Nutra came from. And it's like we're looking at areas where people are using pharmaceuticals where they don't have to. They can use something natural, and that can really help them with that. And then use this type of system for the other areas, nutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, and the balance there, and their gut health and lifestyle factors and that sort of stuff, and solve other issues like more like insulin issues. Gut issues, like I mentioned, stress issues, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the trajectory that Truth Nutra was born out of. And it's like a mission-based company. We have, I think we're doing important work and building cool products. It's a lot of fun. It's cool to see all the testimonials people send in, and it's been going well.
Yeah, I was looking around at your site. You're YouTube stuff, and then the Facebook page as well looks awesome.
Thanks.
Let's let's cover first signs guys are suffering from low testosterone, and then what's like the big things that they should tackle first. I always say sleep and body fat like are the two main, but
yeah. Well, those are okay. So those are big, like, those are really good levers in terms of big levers for someone that's like simple to go after right away. Yeah, definitely. What I would say, well, in terms of signs for low testosterone, I guess we hit those first. I mean, the big ones are obviously like the ones that are most noticeable are the sexual related things. People like you stop getting a morning wood. That's a big sign. And that can typically, it can happen for a lot of reasons, like related to body fat, like you just mentioned. Like you can have, so a guy can stop getting a morning wood because they're going into too big of a deficit and they're getting too lean, and the body starts to prioritize other functions over sexual reproductive functions, right? More survival functions. And on the other end of the spectrum, they have like sexual health issues when they get too fat. So, and a lot of that has to do with, like really just hormonal imbalance. Probably a very high estrogen when you have a lot of body fat. You're going to have higher cortisol levels. You're going to have messed up insulin issues. So, and these things all like play together basically. And testosterone is typically going to be, if you have high cortisol and estrogen, like your testosterone is not going to be, it'll be low.
Those are the two main roadblocks for most guys.
Yeah. Which comes down to kind of what you just mentioned in terms of the like sleep and increasing sleep and improving sleep and decreasing body fat really goes with that, because the sleep comes down to, I mean, that if you can get a few extra hours of sleep every night, your cortisol it'll reliably get lower and become more balanced, because the sleep is really important for that. And then the estrogen, on the estrogen side, estrogen molecules are easily stored in body fat. So that's kind of like where they like to hang out. And that's where you see a lot of guys that have higher estrogen, they start to get, gynecomastia issues and like love handles, more belly fat kind of coming through the front. And that's because that's where it's being stored. Like the estrogen molecules are being stored there. It's almost like at a certain point you can start to, if you see enough patterns, you can look at someone's physique and say, all right, there's probably an issue with their thyroid because of like where the body fat's being stored, or with their liver, or they're like have higher than normal estrogen because they're storing body fat here. And so it's that's interesting stuff. But yeah, dropping the body fat, like what I'd say, like on a level deeper, in how we looked at the pyramid, I really think that at the root cause of pretty much all dysfunction in the body that has to do with hormones, metabolism, which ultimately those are, if you optimize those things, all your issues are going to go away. But it comes down to the micronutrient balance in people, and on a level where it can manifest in like a lot of brain issues. I started to really see this with looking into all just testosterone related stuff, but I also read this book called Nutrient Power, written by this guy, a PhD, who studies micronutrients as a therapy in psychological disease. And he basically cures people of very severe issues like schizophrenia using different cocktails of micronutrients. So schizophrenia being one that you can use B vitamin therapy to cure it. And by looking at all this research that he had too, where he's like, it's really comes down to like these psychological issues, these diseases are a manifestation of imbalance of micronutrient levels in the body, and it makes very logical sense for issues to like manifest when your body can't pull on the natural resources that it needs to actually fuel those systems. It really needs to trigger all these enzymatic reactions, to trigger the signaling that's required for your nervous system and the hormonal communication. The natural resource that your body needs is these vitamins and minerals to do that. When you're deficient in these things, the body starts to dysfunction. It's going to try and pull first. It's going to try and figure out where to get them. So it's going to start pulling from other areas that would essentially need them, but maybe are lower on the totem pole in terms of like a need hierarchy. And but eventually, and sometimes it could take decades. It's kind of what you see, like guys, anybody, men and women, like in their late teens, start to develop certain health issues that are a lot more minor. Eventually, it becomes way more noticeable. Late 20s, early 30s, into people's 40s, they start to have diseases. Like they start to run into these chronic illnesses, and then 50s, cancers start to really develop. I'd say that like the majority of them probably are developed within that 30 to 40, 50-year-old range. And I think a lot of this comes from like we're introducing things into our bodies during this progression that eventually isn't serving the body. Like you become increasingly more deficient in these raw materials that your body needs to fuel these processes. And then you introduce things that are blocking, and I call them blockers, where it's just like they're literally getting in the way of your body running at that optimal capacity. And they could be at the level of anti-nutrients too, which are things that you could be consuming that are kind of speeding up that deficiency process, right? They could be pulling excess nutrient from your body, and in that case you're becoming even more deficient more quickly. And a lot of people don't even know what that stuff is, and a lot of it flies under the radar. I mean, there's like vegetables that have a bunch of anti-nutrients in them, and kind of can encourage this kind of biochemical behavior, I guess. So it's an interesting thing. It's like the more I learn about it, the less I feel confident that I knew before. Like it's like the more you know, the less you know kind of thing. I'm just like, shit, this is complicated. But I'm starting to really see these patterns now too, and I have a lot of trust in the system that I've developed to this point to like identify those patterns and help people with how they can improve themselves. But I do, like, long story short, the foundational element, I believe, is micronutrient levels, because really your body needs those. And I know a lot of people are deficient in, like, anyone listening to this, I would bet money that if you got your micronutrients tested, you would be deficient at least 3 things.
So what are like the main things that guys are deficient in or should look out for?
Big ones. The first ones being the electrolytes. So, and it might sound trivial, but like, because I know we've probably heard since we were kids, like, oh, you got to drink Gatorade so you get your electrolytes. I'm not necessarily talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about like the main minerals that your body uses for neuronal communication. Those are the electrolytes. So we're talking magnesium, potassium, sodium, and calcium. Mm-hmm. So these things are crucial because your nervous system uses them to communicate, as they are basically like involved in that electrical signaling. So it's very easy for these things to be deficient, especially nowadays when people are demonizing salt in general. Like, these are all salts. You can and people are demonizing salt. People are not consuming much of it in their diet whatsoever. It could even come from, like, I remember I had an issue with electrolyte deficiency just from over drinking flat water. I started getting like this water delivery service, so I would just drink a lot of water, and eventually started having issues with sympathetic dominance, where like I could feel like my adrenaline was up, and I was having trouble falling asleep at night because my mind would just be racing, even though there was no real reason for like a psychological stress to be there. And I got my micronutrient panel done, and sure enough, I was actually deficient, like very deficient in magnesium, sodium, and potassium, and had a higher calcium level. And that ratio is indicative of sympathetic dominance. So what I did, I just shifted to drinking high mineral content water, so Gerolsteiner, and then which has a good amount of all these things in it, and then cut back on my flat water for a period of time, only drinking mineral water, and then I supplemented in that case with magnesium and potassium, and within 2 weeks all the deficiency was gone and felt great, felt fine. all those like nagging symptoms that I had there were gone. So those are really important to look out for. And then there's other ones that are key. They're like tied more specifically to things like obviously thyroid health, with your like selenium and iodine levels. And if you're deficient in those, you can start to. It's like a big game of detective when you start doing these tests, and you can look and be like, oh, I'm deficient in my iodine. What, like, am I eating something that's blocking iodine uptake? Which in that case would be a goitrogen. And there are actually a lot of goitrogens in vegetables, and certain compounds that you might be eating that you don't really know, like beans. Beans have goitrogens in them. Broccoli, kale, like these things have these antithyroid, and they're antithyroid in the sense that they block iodine uptake in your thyroid. So you would be start to become deficient in the iodine, especially if you're not eating iodine. And a lot of people's diets are very low in iodine. So it's, getting these panels done, maybe a couple times a year is very helpful to look at this stuff. And other key ones like zinc obviously is really important for testosterone levels. And you can kind of go, there's manganese, there's like all iron, like all these different things that
with zinc, like a lot of people are worried. A lot of doctors say over 30 milligrams a day, or even a lot of info on the internet. But then a few tests they've done, it's like you can have 300 milligrams a day. And
yeah,
they show no zinc poisoning or whatever.
yeah, no signs of toxicity. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of hard to judge based on these recommended daily amounts that people have, because like you said, like the government might release some form that says, oh, this is what you need every day, or like doctors agree upon this or whatever.
And it's hard to fight that, like whatever whatever you call it, like body of information, because it seems like such an authority. But
yeah, well, people think it's an authority, and that's why, but then like you said, you have these studies. Some studies will come out with no adverse effects, but they show like really great benefits.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that every one of these things is missing, because even the studies that are looking at like a zinc supplementation for a period of 8 weeks in a group of guys, and what does that do? They don't also, I have never seen one that they measured their micronutrient level before they administered it. So that's like a big key to the puzzle that everyone seems to miss.
A lot of these nutrient studies, they miss a lot. Even the studies of macros, like there's a few studies about low protein versus low protein, high carb for testosterone, but then they don't add fats into the equation with.
Yeah, they're just like, which makes it totally unusable information.
Yeah.
In a regular context,
Just give us a good study.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like with the, I don't know, people, there's like a crazy amount of lack of logic in the world.
I know. Like I did the man diet. I wrote the man. I rewrote the initial one was super high fat, super like low carb, and then I, did more research over like 5 years. I think I wrote that 5 years ago. So then this version of the man diet is, I teamed up with a researcher out of University of Florida. So we did intermittent fasting. That's his kind of expertise. And then I'm just like looking at all these studies. I'm like, protein, it's great for body composition, which is very good for testosterone, and carbs you need and fats you need. So we ended up doing a pretty balanced diet.
Yeah, that's really what it turns out to be. Yeah. It's like, wow, who would have thought?
So yeah, I've gone like looked at all these studies, maybe do this, and like the whole time I should have, just been on an even keel, doing what made sense, like logically what made sense.
Well, it's almost like the more you know in any capacity, like any other, even so especially in studying this stuff, because there's a lot to it, but then also in business or relationships, or like anything you're trying to be successful in, it seems like there's this underlying principle of simplicity is always the best road, of like following reason, because it's so easy to get caught up in like all this complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And secrets to this stuff,
Like so many of these studies have a point to prove as well, and they're clever at proving their point.
Yeah, it's the more you read about them, and the more you see like at Duke too, I saw a lot of this nonsense. There's so many politics involved in it, and that's something that like the average person just doesn't get about science and research as an industry. Is that it's as flawed and as human as any other industry, because there's people here with agendas that are doing stuff, and the agenda usually it almost 100% of the time has to do with money, because just on a big, and I'm not talking like from any kind of like conspiracy standpoint either. It's literally just real. It's like they are these researchers, this is their job. The way they get funded is through grants or through private funding. And that's how they put bread on the table for their kids, you know. So they're gonna do what they gotta do. And a lot of them don't have like they don't have philosophies like you or I would have, because they're not like out teaching stuff to people. They're really just, they're not trying to find out what makes sense, what works. They're literally just like, all right, where's getting funded right now in my field? I need to go look at this. Oh, you know, this industry is putting a lot of money into studying these things. So I'm going to grab one of those grants, so I have, you know, guaranteed income for the next 2 years. So, you know, so on and so forth. Or they have like their own personal agenda in terms of pushing, you know, if they believe, and this is where identity politics gets into it, where it's like, I identify as a vegan. I identify as, it's almost like a religious thing. It becomes
no
like
detachment. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing objective about pretty much all the science that's being done right now. And it's almost like it's opposite of real science. If you look back at what the scientific method, you know, Francis Bacon, like how he developed the Baconian method, is like completely objective, based in reason, based in like all this good analysis, very, very thorough. None of that exists anymore in terms of what science is. It's just become a faith-based thing where people like have these identities that they're trying to protect. They have this, you know, and they, you know, it's obviously money driven, but it really is like it's as much of a religion as anything else at this point, because it requires this level of like faith and faith in a dogma, basically.
I'm in Canada. We have polar bears up here. And like, so the government is giving grants based on people who will prove the narrative that climate change is wreaking havoc on like polar bear populations or whatever.
Yeah.
So we like, now we have satellites. We can actually track the polar bears. There's never been more polar bears in recorded history, but because it flies against the funding, there's only a few scientists that will actually say, no, like, they're thriving. We actually need to like let these Inuit populations hunt them again. Like,
Yeah.
It's just not sustainable. They're killing. They're like the most dangerous animal on the planet, and they're getting more brave, and they have to spread out because their territories are so big. But because of the ideology or the group that provides grants and funding, nothing true is going to happen or be said.
It stalls progress in general. It's like there's, and I understand why it is that way, and it's hard to beat, and it's hard to like, just because everything's so ingrained at this point. It's like, and then there's so many different levels, especially when you get into government. There's like the bureaucracy is impossibly slow and very political.
But now it's like we were talking about running ads for Google, and there's the dog. We're running ads for Google, and we were both talking about how big pharmaceutical companies have a monopoly on certain words or certain spaces that you can see the ads out there, but then when you try to run an ad that lines up with what they're running, like say for testosterone or for something like that, it's almost like these companies like Google or these big pharmaceutical companies, it's like a government kind of thing. The regulation, the deals that are being made is out of control.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they build this airtight system that's hard to get around. It's not impossible to get around, but it's difficult.
The internet's it's a good thing. Like companies like yours, and without the internet, people wouldn't have access to information or another way of thinking, or even just like talking about the possibility of of the narrative being different than what we're told it is. Like the food pyramid's the best example, or a great example. The one where trained. I remember being in the second grade, getting trained about the food pyramid, and then you find out it's pretty much upside down.
Yeah, exactly. It was funded by these companies, General Mills, and like all this. And then I was talking to a dentist about this. Another good example in this sense is like he was saying that there's this dogma in dentistry and in like the mass population that you have to go to the dentist twice a year. And he was like, what is that even based off of? So he finds out that that's based off of a commercial that was run in the 70s on like nightly TV about like Fix a Dent or something like that, where it's like, take our product and then see your dentist twice a year. I guess this commercial had such widespread visibility because there was no internet then. There was no competition for this kind of advertising other than like people that watched the nightly news, which was like everybody, kept seeing this over and over and over again. Eventually, the insurance companies pick up this idea and they say, we're going to only reimburse you for 2 dentist visits per year. And then boom, it's dogma. And like nobody questions it anymore. It's just like in the dentist field, everyone thinks I got to go to the dentist twice a year. And there's like a million examples like that. I mean, the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That's another, it's like, where the fuck did that come from?
And eggs were demonized for a while. Butter.
Yeah. Salt,
Salt's been demonized for a long time.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff like this. It's just propaganda. But like you said, going back to the internet thing, is like now we have this massive, it's not even exponential. It's like way bigger than that, like spread of information that's possible. So it's pretty awesome. And there are ways like they can't possibly fill all the cracks that exist out there. So, we can, if you got a little creativity, you can get some good information spread, kind of wake people up a little bit.
Yeah, big time. Geez, my dog's like, it's licking his, get picked up. Microphone. So we talked about what's next on the nutrition, obviously. Wait, we just touched on nutrition a bit. Here, let me let him out real quick. Sorry.
All right, it's all good.
So we touched on nutrition a bit. A lot of nutrition has gone from pro-carb, anti-fat to it's kind of turning into pro-fat, anti-carb.
Oh yeah, see a lot of backlash.
Exactly.
I did a video I said it was called "Carbs Don't Make You Fat." Dude, people, so much hate. I'm just like, and it's so illogical too, that their hate, it makes no sense. The comments they're making, I'm just like, this is not, there's no reasoning here. There's no actual evidence, that what you're saying is correct. It's crazy.
And we need, especially for testosterone, we need them. It helps with cortisol levels and so forth, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's just as much, like you mentioned earlier, that being, like there's these studies where they're like isolating these micronutrients with relation to testosterone. They'll do a study on testosterone protein ratio, carbohydrate and protein ratio. Yeah. They'll do another study on protein to fat ratio, and they don't ever do the study with all 3 of them together. But if you look at it just in a context of all the studies, which the keto community is definitely not doing right now with the hormonal stuff, they're looking at only the protein and protein and fat studies. Yeah. And they're like, oh, it increases testosterone. Yes. But you get the same result if you look at a zero fat, like very low fat diet with protein and carbohydrates. Yeah. So either way, like the argument can be made that either one of them, with sufficient research to back it up, increases testosterone production. So that's where it comes into, same conclusion you came to too, where it's like, if you look at the context of it, you have to actually have, and then in the other variable of having a high protein diet, lowering testosterone, when you're really neglecting either the carbs or the fat, because there's like all these bodybuilder studies where they're going very high in protein when they're dieting down. Mm-hmm. And then they're severely restricting their carbohydrates and fats. and then their testosterone just tanks. It just like goes to zero. These guys step on stage that have like 100 nanograms per deciliter, like nothing, And so if you look at the full context of those macronutrient studies, it makes perfect sense that your body is going to respond very well to a nice balance there.
Yeah. Here, let me close the door again. Did he just went out and brought back a bone from outside?
Nice.
To the house. Fuck, whatever. So then diet. Sorry, man. It's like a bit of a joke. I took him for a walk. Did all the things I should have done. He's a bit of a shithead. You don't have any dogs, do you?
No, I had a dog, but he passed on. But I'm gonna get another dog here, probably in the next year or so.
Where are you? Like located?
I'm in Florida right now, but we're moving everything to Boulder, Colorado.
Where in Florida?
Doing Melbourne.
Oh, well, I was just in Tampa like 2 days ago.
Oh, were you at Vince's thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
That was good. It's always good. He's had a couple now, so it's really good.
Vince is awesome.
Yeah,
Mikey, his brother, came here. He flew in, came to the office for 2 days, stayed here at my place, and then drove out to Tampa.
Nice. So you know how long have you known Vince for?
Probably 4 or 5 years, probably.
No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, his dad and my dad are best pals, so I've known him since I was a kid.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Good guy. Mikey's awesome too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bend his ear, figure out some good videos.
Well, he's the video master.
He is.
Yeah.
So then Boulder, you're gonna move everything to Boulder yourself and the company and everything?
Yep, everything's moving there.
Why is that?
It's a better location for our growth. Obviously, it's kind of like the center of natural health in terms of like good companies, good brands coming out of there. A lot of natural foods brands. The center of cannabis, the cannabis industry. I'm not a big fan of marijuana in terms of like my personal use. I know it has a lot of medicinal benefits for a lot of people, but I really like hemp. I think, with the very low THC, but the high CBD, I really like it. And I'd like to, get into that later when it's less crazy in terms of like government stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of momentum there though. So, and then Boulder, in terms of Boulder and Denver area, there are a lot of very talented people that are available for hire. So we started hiring out there, a lot different than in Florida. It's just a different industry here. We're near Cape Canaveral, so there's a lot of aerospace stuff, but that's really not relevant to what we're doing. So
yeah.
That's
awesome. Yeah, I love Colorado. I've been down there for a bit. I'm up in Calgary, so it's like kind of similar. We've got the Rockies.
Is that kind of like straight up the Rocky? Yeah.
Cool. I'm pretty sure we're right north of you.
Nice.
I'll probably do a road trip down there in the summer.
Yeah, come visit. We're gonna have our office right there on Pearl Street. It's like the main.
Dude, awesome.
Main drag.
I'll come down every summer. I try to do a road trip with the dog and like just camp along the way.
Nice.
Montana. Went through Montana and down the Cali coast. It's just insane.
The coast of California.
Oh, that
Big Sur.
Yeah, exactly, that drive. So we went there and it had that forest fire 2 years ago. So I didn't really get to spend time there, but then we went to Carmel.
Yeah.
And stayed. It's like a dog-friendly town by the water.
Well, I lived in Monterey for 2 years.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
The thing about Americans is you guys can move into such different places. Like state by state, your government's so different, the climate's so different. You can and you kind of have free range all over the country. We're pretty much like cold.
Yeah, you got that north of the border, weather thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're gonna have a bit of it in Colorado. Your winter's gonna be.
Yeah. Well, luckily Boulder is like weirdly situated where even right now, I think I've been checking the weather, once a week or whatever. It looks like it's in the 40s Fahrenheit. So, and then it's sunny. There's more sunny days per year in Boulder than there is in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So we're the same. I think Calgary is one of the top 3 sunny places in North America.
Interesting. So the sun just must hit that.
I think it's got to do the Rockies because we get these things called Chinooks too. So the weather can be really bad not bad. It's just cold. I actually kind of enjoy it. It's like -30 and kind of rough.
That's cold. Yeah.
Yeah, it's freezing. Not Fahrenheit, but like.
But still, I think Celsius and Fahrenheit, when you get that cold, are like very similar.
They match up, yeah. But then, like, so we left for Florida and it was minus 30 something, and there was a snowstorm, and then we came back and it's 7 above or 10 above, or yeah, it got to above 10 and sunny.
Huh.
Because of the mountains, I don't know what the hell it is, but there's like a line in the sky. The clouds stop. It's sunny. It's warm. And then 3 days later, it's right back down. And we spend our winters, like, we get reprieves from the cold throughout the winter, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a lot better than like I lived in New York City for 2 years too. And it was like so dark all the time and just cold and windy. But it would be like that for 6 months, you know?
Yeah, so I was in Vancouver and it's shit for 8 months.
Yeah.
Like the highest suicide rate in North America or something. That in Seattle, because they got the rain. It's not cold.
Yeah.
It's overcast all the time. I didn't mind it. I grew up with it, but then I come out here and it's sunny all the time. And I don't care if it's cold. It's still nice.
Yeah, I got out of the sun hitting my skin at some point, you know, like every day.
The thing is, it's so cold that it's not hitting your skin. It's hitting like your cap, and like your face is covered and shit.
But so you just got to get it reflecting off the snow and hit you.
I got windows. I got as much windows as possible. That's about it. So then let's we can wrap it up just by telling guys about your company and we told, was it Testro X?
Yeah, Testro X.
Thing that guys should. So I spend not a ton of time, but like the amount of test boosters that are just utterly useless and guys should not even think about. You go to GNC, don't even look at the test boosters.
Yeah.
Why is yours is essentially like I created them a multivitamin for men. Yours is essentially a multivitamin for men, giving them the nutrients that they're not going to find in an average diet, pretty much, right?
Yeah, so I could walk through like the reasoning behind how I formulated it. Perfect. And just so people know, because there is a lot of skepticism about test boosters out there. For
justifiably so, though.
Yeah, justified. I mean, and honestly, that was part of the reason that we did one, and because we were like, when on Anabolic Men, Ali and I would get these emails literally like tons of them daily. Hey, what test booster should I take? What should I do? This, that. Just like, oh, all this stuff is garbage, man. Just do get the micronutrients, do all this stuff. And eventually it's just like, all right, let's do something. Let's see if we can put together a good formula, because there really isn't one. It's one of those situations where it's like there's this market need and they just make something happen. And so the reasoning, the logic behind the formula for Testro X is there are three key parts to it. So the first one is the micronutrients again. Mm-hmm. That was really important. So I looked at the research in terms of like what are the key micronutrients that are like the high leverage ones for testosterone production. And the point of the supplement is to help you produce your own testosterone. It's not necessarily, there's like false positive type stuff that people could take that will block DHT. So then there's more circulating testosterone, but that doesn't really do anything for you in terms of the increased production. So I wanted to make sure that this was increasing production of testosterone. So there's tons of research on magnesium and zinc increasing testosterone production. There's also, they also are favorable to the hormonal environment in general, like lowering SHBG and helping in other areas, lowering estrogen. So those were the big ones. Also, they're really common deficiencies in guys. And so it helps to have a highly bioavailable source of that regularly. So that's the first one, the kind of the micronutrient blend. And then it's not really a blend. There's no proprietary blend, but it's so that's the first section. The second one is cortisol regulation is very important. Yep. Obviously, basically it's antithetical to testosterone levels. So the higher cortisol is going to suppress testosterone. But if you have a nice balanced level of cortisol, your testosterone can be very healthy. So the biggest lever there in my mind was ashwagandha, and ashwagandha has so much research behind it for cortisol regulation. But the added benefit is that in all these hormone studies they do on ashwagandha, there's increases in testosterone and free testosterone production in the body because of this adaptogenic capability that it has. uh, at the cellular level. So that's awesome. And then I started to realize too that like a lot of these the best ashwagandha studies for hormones they were all using this one type, the KSM66. And this strain was developed by a company that they figured out how to grow this strain of ashwagandha that would have double the withanolide content, which the withanolides are really what kind of pull the levers in terms of the benefits. So it's like the active ingredient. And so we sourced this organic KSM66 for TestroX. Forskolin is another like an extract in there that has a lot of good research for. I mean, it was promoted actually originally for weight loss stuff, but it's actually really good for testosterone. It increases cyclic AMP levels, which downstream increase testosterone production, and it kind of gives you that, it kind of juices you up, like you feel great. You get the higher cyclic AMP. A lot of pre-workout formulas are trying to do that too, like that same mechanism. And then the last thing was stimulating LH production, which is the signaling hormone from your pituitary, signals to your testes to produce testosterone. So I thought, hey, if I could find some natural things that will signal and help with that, then that would be pretty good too. So that's kind of like the last element of it. And that's the logic behind the formula. And that's kind of, I apply that same logic to all of our formulas. Like what's the problem we want to solve? What are some ingredients, if any, that are out there that actually have good research behind showing this benefit? And then what are the dosage levels? Because that's another part of it. It's like you got to get out the right dose. And sometimes it's just like physically impossible to get the right dosage of something into these capsules. That's actually shown in research to do something. Because if they say like, I'm just a example, this isn't a true thing, but if they said, oh, magnesium's only effective at 5 grams, you can't really like get that into something. It's not like on a physical level, 5 grams of magnesium it would have to be a powder. It wouldn't fit into capsules. It would be very difficult to flavor so that someone would actually be able to take it. So there's like that element of, oh, is this thing even realistic to get in there? Or is it going to cost a fortune? Some of this stuff costs like fucking a ton, so, and then it's not viable for a consumer because nobody could afford paying $200 for a supplement, stuff like that. So there's all these elements to the equation to build the best supplement. And that's how I look at it. And that's, it ends up working out. We got a lot of good testimonials at this point. People like having great results on all these.
That's awesome. I'll put a bunch of links, not just to that. There's a couple other ones I wanted to put up there, but I'll put links to everything. I'll put this on YouTube and then in the show notes and iTunes as well.
Cool.
I'll get that up. Yeah, it looks like an awesome company, man.
Thanks.
It's great to see companies like this started when there's so much nonsense out there.
Yeah, it's a big place to serve, like a big population. Make some good stuff.
And then finally, like just to cap it off, so studies on the decline of testosterone. I wanted to bring this up. There's not a lot of them, right?
You mean like a population decline? Yeah.
There's like pretty much that one out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, and then everyone references, and they don't. Well, actually, so what's the point you were going to say?
I just like people's conclusions. They take so many different conclusions from that study, and then they just, I don't know. The conclusions taken are depends what people want to push,
Yeah.
But like, what do you think is causing this decline in testosterone? In like if they study it and it ends up being legit in populations, what do you think that's causing this main decline? You think it's the macronutrients, guys aren't getting the right things, or?
Well, okay, so like let's say, saying like assuming that the decline is a real thing, like from the time our grandparents, maybe it's like from the Great Depression till now, right? Yeah. The average guy's testosterone has rapidly declined. I'd say there are a couple elements to that. First off, the rise in like plastics and polymers has been like insane. when this
we're putting plastic incubators.
It's literally like, yeah, we have so many plastics in our bodies from the time we were kids.
Yeah.
Like every type of food is wrapped in it, you know,
Totally.
heated up in it. It's difficult to avoid right now. And we're actually, like, with Truth Nutra, we set the goal for this year. We're going to become a plastic-less company.
It's awesome.
Because, like, even with supplement capsules, it's not that big a deal because it's like they're not being warmed up. There's no food actually touching plastic and everything. And that's where you get into a lot of issues if you're like microwaving TV dinners in a microwave in like this shitty plastic container, and it's like leaching all the stuff in the food. But even that being said, I was like, I just don't want the plastics at all in our anywhere near our stuff. You know, I think that's a good mission. So we're moving to glass bottles. We're moving to bags for powders. So that's on the plan this year. But I think it's the rise in the just the ubiquity of plastic. Like, it's literally everywhere. It's in everything. And plastics plastic is a general term. There are like so many different types of things, but what they do in the body is they're endocrine disrupting chemicals, like in general, across the board. And that's not disputed whatsoever. There's like every study on every type of polymer that's you know, would fall into this category is an endocrine disruptor. The government agrees with it. Like, everyone agrees on this level.
Mm-hmm.
Except it's literally this like uncontainable beast at this point. You can't imagine living your life without plastic at this point. It's
everything.
It's even in the clothes that we're wearing. Like, there's you know, these polyesters and like all the stuff, the chair that you're sitting on, like, it's literally everywhere. You can't escape it. So you have to just be wary of where it is and decrease the load that you're allowing into your body. So
we'll start with not using plastics to drink out of or with your food and so forth.
Yeah, the easy stuff. It's like you can actually, I think if you look at the high leverage things, which is always helpful to look at, it's like you said, you know, finding something you can be drinking out of, like that's glass or some kind of, you know, good metal like stainless steel, and then not heating up your foods in plastic containers. If you can get, it's even hard to, like, it's almost impossible to find any kind of food that's not stored in plastic, unless you get it from like a farmer's market. Even those, like, they're setting all the fruits in the plastic bags and it's pretty much impossible. So, like,
nuts, they're put in plastic bags. You get this, you put like steak wrap.
Steaks, shrink wrapped in plastic, and it's really difficult to decrease that load. So that's why I'm not really worried about, like, I don't want to rile people up about like trying to be afraid of that, because you can't really avoid it now. But don't heat your stuff up in the plastics, because that's really going to degrade the plastic. All that's going to leak in your food. You're going to eat it. So you know, plastic storage containers, it's kind of hard to get rid of that, but just if you don't have to, don't heat it up in it. And so I think that's probably like one of the main drivers, because if you look at just things that didn't exist back then, that was one of them. It's in the rise and because plastic on an industrial, like an economic level, it makes so much sense that it would be so common now. It's so cheap. You know, and it's very useful on a use sense. For our health, it's not doing any favors. The other thing is probably it would have to come down to micronutrients. I mean, it's like probably every one of our grandparents. You go to your grandma's house, she's like using whole foods to you know, it's just like classic. And then they have, that generation has a lot of pride in the quality of the food. They're not going buying, you know, and this is based on my experience with my grandparents and anyone else that I've ever talked to about it. But I'm sure there's people that would kind of buck this trend. But they also might be dead at this point, who, you know. But they're looking for like high quality meats, high quality potatoes, and
they tend to have butchers. I find. Generations, they had butchers. They didn't have Safeway or whatever, Costco or whatever.
Because those things didn't exist. So and they still go to a butcher. Like
they're having butchers. They know the guy's name. They know what meats they like.
They know where the farm that it came from and all that. Which I think, I mean, we should get back to that. I subscribe to a service called Butcher Box.
Okay, I've seen that.
Yeah, I met the founder once. And they're legit. They care about quality of the meat there. They use local farmers, and then they just like flash freeze the stuff and ship it to you.
Yeah, we've got in Alberta, I got my butcher's got elk and like
Damn,
game and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
oh, it's the best.
Yeah, that's hard to find.
Yeah,
My dad hunts deer, so we get that for.
I've been waiting for tags, man. Like the bloody government. Like we have to do draws, so I might go to Nova Scotia or whatever, or yeah, to hunt moose with a buddy and try to get some of that back here.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, moose would that tastes like elk? I'd imagine it tastes like it.
Elk's the best. I think elk's the best. Deer is also excellent. You know how it's just tastes. Yeah. It tastes so good. Moose is like a close third. I think it's super lean. It's really good. Elk is just unbelievable though. You're gonna find a lot of that in Colorado, I think.
Yeah. There's a place like I don't know if have you ever been to Powder Mountain, Utah?
No.
They it's about a day drive away from Boulder, but it's an awesome mountain, like a really good ski mountain and everything. Eventually, I want to build a house there, and they have like this huge elk reserve that's massive out there. So that would be. I'll bet you there's some good elk there.
Yeah, I like in the mad diet. Like always, we're hunters from a evolutionary standpoint. Our ancestors all hunted, and it's the best quality of meat you can possibly get. So if you're inclined to it,
yeah,
like get after it.
That's what I think. All the problem, any real problem that is with meat, and there's plenty of problems with the state of meat right now in the U.S. and probably in Canada too.
Yeah, exactly same thing.
Yeah, where any argument that anyone would make against eating meat is all based on these other things. It has nothing to do with the meat itself. It's based on like the meat's full of antibiotics, the meat's full of estrogens, the meat is full, or the animals are treated poorly. It's like all this stuff that actually on a really basic level has nothing to do with the substance of the meat.
No.
Like the idea of eating meat. It just has to do with like all this I agree with all of it. It's just all shitty. Like how did we get to this point with
population? Like it's a system that I don't know. I don't know if we need it, but we could do it. If you look at cattle, if you let cattle graze, they have a positive effect on the earth or whatever. But if you don't let them graze, because they regurgitate, they fertilize the food, the grass and whatever, and you let them, the way they do it is they segment them. They put them here, let them do this, put them here, let them do this. They shit, everything grows, blah, blah, and you move them around. But if you, if you don't let them graze, then they have a negative effect, So it's just the system we've built to produce this insane amount of meat that we need to produce. There's got to be a better way to do it, you'd think.
But there definitely is, and I think it just comes down to like it's going to come down to entrepreneurs because problem solvers, people that there's all these market needs, especially in food, and people can problem solve, and that's how you're going to get it because it has to be relevant to the market because ultimately that's what drove this entire fucked up system in the first place to where it's at. So it has to be relevant to the market. It can't be like a pie in the sky thing. It can't be a nonprofit. It's got to have to be like a value driven system. But someone's going to be able to do it, and there will be like this revolution. I think.
I agree.
Because people want it at this point. Like we want it. We're sitting here talking about it. I know tons of people who want it.
Just getting the cost down of some of the different options.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be able to compete with standard meat costs that exist right now.
Yeah, I swear that the size of those companies, like the I don't know what you call them, the farmers, they're not technically like the meat companies, the big meat companies, they've got to be getting some crazy rebates or.
Oh yeah, they're getting subsidized big time. Yeah.
There's a stat that with every dollar spent for government, dollar increase in lobbying goes up. So the more this animal grows, the more these like entrepreneurs that we need to give us what we're asking, the more they're going to kind of be squeezed out.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation in terms of the. I agree with you though. It's like it's like, why am I spending all my tax money and subsidizing these systems that are doing this stuff? And then I saw a statistic that the IRS spent like $20 million on a task force that was retrieving $6 million worth of taxes.
Goodness.
Like,
how is that not the most frustrating thing on the face of the planet? Like we spent, or you guys, like we're the same. Our tax system's out of control, but you spent 20 million to
retrieve $6,
and that's six hard-earned dollars.
Yeah, from it was probably just $6 million from like guys that work their ass off all the time.
And it's arbitrary, like all these audits they do and stuff. Like, man, it's not like they're trying to like split hairs with how they get their money sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Okay, well, where I'll put links to Truth Nutra. Where else can guys? I know your YouTube page is awesome, so I'll put links to that as well. And it's just Christopher Walker. If they search that in YouTube,
it should just come up, Christopher Walker. Same on Instagram. It's _ Christopher Walker.
Okay.
Yeah.
YouTube videos are awesome. I'll put a couple links to those in the newsletter as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking to grow that channel. Get it
yeah,
big.
same. I had a good YouTube page. Did some stuff for the Art of Manliness and some boxing stuff, and I had a good YouTube page, and I kind of left it. So I need to get back. Yeah,
it's pretty fun. Like once the community starts to engage, it's a lot of fun.
Once you get a process down, it looks like you've got your we talked about your editing's dialed in and everything's kind of do the video, go here, go there. Once you get the editor in, and I just hired a editor, so hopefully
that was my biggest limiter, because before it would be so, because I don't know how to like work a camera and stuff. I just had no interest in it. So and same with editing. So it's like, give that to someone who's really good at it, who loves it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. Okay, I'll put links there, and then I'll get guys to check out Testosterone X for sure. Appreciate coming on, man.
Awesome. Yeah, no, great.
Your book is great too, so I'll put links to that as well.
Thanks. Yeah, can you send me this video too when you have it up?
For sure.
Because I could stick it on the YouTube channel. Okay. I'm sure people want to watch it. So
this is the biggest test right now is if I don't delete the video. Like I'll just be really careful with what I do.
Yeah, just like so it's still live. Just don't hit the wrong button.
I gotta just press stop broadcast and then leave the screen on for like ever until it's up on YouTube. Yeah,
just go to a different tab and then
I've fucked up many a video. Just like you take an hour of someone's time and then you delete the video. It's like, hey man, like sorry, but it's not good.
Cool. Well, it was nice to finally meet you though too in person, and then and thanks again for the intro to Brett.
Oh, no worries. So how'd that work out?
It was awesome. Had a great show.
Good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I think the feedback on the episode was really good too. So.
Good. He's a great guy. No worries. And I'm glad we got some mutual friends, Vince and Mikey. So
yep,
it's awesome. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm headed to Toronto on Friday actually.
Oh no shit! How long are you gonna be there for?
Till next Saturday, so a week.
Okay. Awesome. Well, maybe we'll cross paths someday.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye, brother.